Head to Whole Foods Market to jumpstart your January during our New Year boosting event with savings on feel-good favorites store-wide. Save on organic picks, wellness staples, and more all month long.
Your neighborhood just got cooler with Kroger Delivery's refrigerated trucks. Simply order groceries at the same great prices online as in-store, and we'll bring them to you fresh every time. And if that wasn't cool enough, you can now earn 4 times the fuel points after 4 with your digital coupon. Choose a next-day Kroger delivery time slot for 4 p.m. or later on Tuesdays, Wednesdays, and Thursdays. Must deliver by February 4th. Restrictions apply. See Kroger.com for details.
Hey there, Duke fans. It's episode 679 of the DBR podcast. This is going to be a special one. This is going to be a fun one. I can already tell. I am Jason Evans. Joining me is my buddy Donald Wine. How you doing today, Donald?
Feeling a little upbeat. I don't know. Just, I have a lot of, just like a little extra air in me today. I don't know why.
Like you're floating. Like you're floating above Guillermo.
Yes, I float. That's a great way to put it. I am floating. Yeah. I just hope I don't run anything.
We are here to recap the Blue Devils' victory over the Pitt Panthers. And a little bit later, we will address the fact we got a number of emails, Donald, from people who said, you guys make all these opponents seem like they're the greatest teams on earth, and then Duke beats the crap out of them. And I think that people are kind of complaining because they feel like we are pumping up these opponents. I would suggest alternately that maybe Duke is really, really good.
I think I told somebody, we've responded to a couple of emails, and I know we were going to address this, but I think for the most part, yes, we are. We're kind of telling you, because first of all, like we're stupid. We watch everything. We watch all these teams way more than we normally would if we were like just a fan without a podcast. So we are bringing the information to people that may not know anything about a Notre Dame or a Pitt or a Virginia Tech. And yes, we're going to tell you who are good. Great thing is our team listens to the pod, apparently, because they are shutting down the guys that we talk about on this show. But I would rather do that. I would much rather do that and be wrong about them being somewhat decent and us beating the pants out of them in historic fashion, as I know we'll talk about, than for us to say, this team is terrible. They're not going to mount any of it, any kind of fight, and then we end up having a close game. We did that a lot last year where we told you this team sucks, and the team ended up not sucking and ended up beating us. We don't want to do that. That's a lot. We get emails about that too. We get a lot more emails when we are wrong about something than in a negative way than us saying, this team is good, we should look out for them, and then our team decides to do something historic again. I'd love for that to continue to happen.
Yeah. So, Donald, I want to start our recap the way we always do with the play of the game.
Play of the game. Yes. Oh, my goodness. Jason, I just want to know, first of all, this was a, and I know John Shire talked about in the press conference, this was a Zion moment. And by Zion moment, you mean I was there with Sam Klein in the Clemson game where he did the 360. Also, shout out to Zion, by the way, for coming back last night and doing a very similar 360.
Exactly.
His first game back in a long time. But it was also the Zion game was a where were you moment. It was a, hey, everyone knows what they were doing when they heard about, saw, learned about Zion Williamson doing that 360. Last night's dunk was a where were you moment for Duke fans. Where were you when you watched Cooper Flagg steal the ball, go the length of the court, run past the defender, and then decide that whoever was in his way was going to get a funeral? And that funeral, my friends, belonged to Guillermo Diaz-Graham as he went in the air, absolutely dunking the life out of him, getting the and one, and even allowing Guillermo to kind of move out of the way before he kind of smiled and laughed at what he had just done. But psychopaths don't commit murder like that and get away with it, but he did, and he got the foul call. It was absolutely incredible. And to answer the question, Jason, I was sitting right where I am right now, watching that dunk happen, and oh my God, my chair could not leave my butt fast enough.
Yeah. So the thing that I wanted to say about it is, I think it's the little details of that ridiculous, absurd, some are calling it already the dunk of the year play that really need to be appreciated. Like the fact that it all begins with Cooper anticipating and getting a ridiculously clean steal. And remember, this is only seconds after he picks up his third foul. And it's fairly early in the second half. And Cooper has just missed much of the first half because of his second foul. So he picks up his third, and you're like, oh, is he gonna ease off a little bit now? Is he going to, be a little more careful? And frankly, no one would blame him if he did. Like, that's probably the smart thing to do, to say, like, oh, I need to be careful that I don't pick up another foul right here because my team really needs me. No, 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 no. This is Cooper Flagg. So detail number one is that, like, there's no caution. There's no being careful. He wanted revenge, and he goes around. It's like the cleanest steal you'll ever see. He basically, this is a sign of his genius at the game. He sees the play happening before the Pitt guys do. And so the Pitt guard, I think it was Jalen Lowe, goes to throw the pass into the post. And Cooper's already relocated to where the recipient was supposed to be. Like, oh, it looked like Jalen Lowe was passing the ball to Cooper Flagg.
Yeah.
Which is just like crazy. And then the next detail I noticed, as he's coming back up the court, Jalen Lowe is basically even with Cooper Flagg. And the way Cooper was dribbling, if he'd taken another dribble the same way he had been, Jalen Lowe is either going to be able to interfere with it, stop him, or something like that. Cooper kind of pushes the ball ahead. And, functionally, he kind of lost control of it intentionally. I want to be clear that he didn't but he switches hands with his dribble with a big ol' step. And I think he knew, I'm faster than Jalen Lowe. I can take a step way bigger than anything Jalen Lowe can do. And so, like I say, he doesn't literally lose control, but it is a unusual dribble that gets him clear of Jalen Lowe.
I would tell you, Jason, this is a soccer move. This is something that I used to do a lot back in the day. When you're on the wing and you see a guy that's in front of you or even with you, and you know that you have the pace to beat him, you kind of do a long dribble. And you do one where you say, hey, I'm just throwing this out there because that guy is going to take his eyes off of me for just that split second. And that split second is going to be enough for me to blow past him to get to the ball. And all of a sudden now I'm looking back and he's a step behind me. That's exactly what happened. He saw a point on the floor where he goes, if I can bounce the ball there, I can get it before he even realizes what's cooking. And that's what happened.
And then the next detail was the fact that he took off, like, I don't think anyone expected him to take off from where he took off from. Like the videos, the still pictures, you go, wait, how did he successfully dunk it from there? That's because Cooper just has stupid athleticism. And then the last thing I wanted to note about it was the reactions. Sion James looks like he's never seen anything like this in his life. He looks horrified that some human being has been subjected to Cooper doing that to him. Isaiah Evans, have you seen Isaiah Evans' flex on the bench?
Yeah.
Oh my God. Isaiah Evans is over there flexing on the bench like he just did the dunk.
There's video from the Cameron Crazy section. I think it's from where the line monitors sit now, and it was somebody who just happened to be filming at that point, and so they have the video of him coming around from that angle, and when he dunks, you just see mass hysteria. You see the people on the other side, like the people behind the bench aren't known to get up for anything, right? If there's a run, they clap from their seats, and if there's a really big run, maybe they'll do the normal standing ovation. But even they were, getting up, kind of pushing each other around like the bench would do after a big dunk. All of Cameron, it felt like relocated to a different seat after that, and you should have because me at home, if there was anybody watching with me, unfortunately because of the snow, I wasn't able to watch with my friends like I normally do. But man, I'm gonna tell you, dogs would have been getting treats, toys would have been moved around, pillows would have been slammed. It was one of those dunks.
Yeah, and even though the play of the game doesn't extend to the next play, I love that on the very next play, the announcers are like, what's he going to do next? And he does like a ridiculous two-handed. It was a moment where you realized this guy has no business at this level. And I mean that, Donald. We saw it over the summer when he played on the select team against the U.S. Olympic team. We are blessed at the moment to have Cooper Flagg in college basketball because honestly, he doesn't belong at he's better than anyone else in college basketball. I'm saying it right now. Johnny Broome is having a hell of a season. I forget the guy's name. There's a guy, Marquette, who's doing great. These guys are great players. They're all 3, 4, 5 years older than Cooper Flagg, but great player. Cooper Flagg's the best player in college basketball. Period. End of story. He doesn't belong at this level. We are getting a gift to get to watch this guy do what he does on the floor, and that gift will keep on giving until early April, in my opinion.
I'm very confused at the play after the play, because first of all, I saw it. I saw the first play. Diaz Graham was murdered on that play. I don't know how he was still in the game. I don't know how he was still guarding Cooper Flagg on that play. And like you said, the announcers. Well, first of all, if you guys listen to the Game Day podcast, which is kind of like quick recaps from Duke on Duke basketball, they have the call from Dave Shoemate, which is incredible. We were trying to find like MP3 of that to put on here, but we just couldn't find it. But go listen to that pod. It is incredible because the call that he has is remarkable, and it's one that you need to hear. But also afterwards, like you said, the announcers on TV, Dave O'Brien was kind of like, okay, well, what's going to happen in this play? And then it's just kind of like you see him drive the lane, and of course Cooper in his mindset, blood in the water, let's eat. I just ate this last play in this guy. What's he going to do? Try and block me again? Yeah, he tried to block him again. So then in the last minute, Diaz Graham was kind of like, wait, I remember what just happened 5 seconds ago. I shouldn't do this again. And he kind of trailed off and let him dunk on it. But man, like, again, that's another play where he saw action. And Jason, on top of that, it was a key play at a key moment. It wasn't just the best play of the year so far. It was a key play at a key moment because that is what allowed Duke to really bust the doors open and say, oh, now they're playing, now they got to play scared for the rest of the game. And we can take advantage of scared. That's exactly what they did.
All right, with that, we're going to put it aside for a moment. I'm sure we'll probably reference it again.
We might go back to it
more. Yeah, we'll probably come back to it. But I want to get to the headlines, Donald. And I don't know whether it was because of the absolute viciousness of the beatdown. I don't know whether it was because of Cooper Flagg's dunks going like viral times 10. But we got just an absurd, ridiculous number of headlines. I'm apologizing to everybody. There are great headlines on the cutting room floor right now. I am sorry to all of you who sent them in because we got 60, 70. The only other time we've gotten headlines like this was when we had the headline contest and everyone was trying to win that really cool Duke pullover from home field. Yeah.
And there's a couple that stand out to me. When D Live got 8 blocks against UNC, we got a buttload of those. And then against Houston last year in the tournament, because of the fact that literally everybody on the planet was like, yo, Houston's the best team in college basketball. Duke, great run, but it's going to end here. And then when we won, there were so many people who had like shocked ones. We got a lot of the same ones, so we were able to kind of combine them. But this one, there was a lot of great ones. And I even told you, because before you were like, I have 9 that I want to do. And I'm like, Jason, we can't do 9. We don't have that much time. We got to get back to work at some point. So we have cut them down, I think, to a good number. I think, Jason, you have some and I have some. I don't think they overlap. So at least we're doing the service of making sure that we don't overlap.
Right. I've got a bunch of rhyming ones at the end, but I'm going to start with Lee Maxon, who gave us this. He said, "Look up in the sky. It's a bird. It's a plane. It's a kid from Maine. He's Super Cooper. Faster than a speeding defender. More powerful than a man-man SWAT. Able to leap tall opponents in a single bound. Super Cooper."
That was great. There was one also about taking flight from Ben Powell, which I laughed at as soon as I read it. And he writes, "RDU kidding me? Flagg's flight plan grounds Pitt." Yes, I love that one because you know me. I travel. I go to airports a lot, and RDU. I just a great reference to flight plans, which much more. They're very cool in Cameron last night, and they were very plentiful.
So we always enjoy when people find ways to pick on the nickname of a school. You recall we had plenty of Mustang puns from SMU. Bobby Weinbarger gives us Devil's D turns the Panthers into kittens.
I saw that one. There was another one from Duke Fox who who said Duke keeps Cameron clear. D, as in defense, odorizes Pitt, which I thought was great.
Hayes McManaman, Pitt, if full done, tries to go down under after Duke destroys the Panthers. We got several headlines related to the last second nut punch. Nothing. Hey, that's you got it. That's what you got. Call it what it is. Nut punch by that Tyrese Proctor was subjected to that resulted in a flagrant two, and that was I like that going down under. I think is a good way to describe it.
Yeah, Josh Levinson wrote Devils D digs Panthers a Pitt Capel can't conquer. He did alliteration and tongue twisting in three different letters, Jason. That's great.
All right, I got some rhymes now. Here comes one of them. Adam Keene, who is better known as Fred 3 on the DBR boards. Great poster on the DBR forums. Adam is. Get ready. This is really brilliant. Proctor grounded, Flagg resounded, Duke well rounded, Pittsburgh pounded.
Yep, I like that one, and I'm glad you used it because that was one I had to edit out. So I'm glad that you put that in there. John Grantland, who of course writes in every single game for both football and basketball, he wrote, "Revenge is a dessert best served with smothered panther on a pit." Of course, referencing last year where Pitt walked out the victors of Cameron, and this time we got a little revenge back.
Dave Piccolo. This is all my remaining ones are rhyming ones. Dave Piccolo gave us on a loop. I watched Coop take a poop on Pitt's hoop.
That one was good too. A coop like a pigeon coop,
Yeah.
or a bird coop. Jason Beyer Beer Bier. He wrote in. This is my last one, Jason. He wrote in. Looks like Shire was still contagious. Gave Pitt the blue flu, which I thought was especially interesting considering the fact that before the game we had heard, and even going so far back to SMU. Of course, Shire was grounded due to illness, but a lot of our guys have been sick the last few days, and I think we talked about it a little bit after the SMU game. That extended to last night, where a lot of our guys were still sick, but were able to tough out a big win.
All right, I got a pair of limericks to round things off. These are the last ones, and I know technically we asked for headlines, but if you take the time to do a limerick and it's any good, I'm going to give it to you. So here we go. Jackson Blower. In Duke versus Pitt, it got scrappy, with tales of nut taps quite snappy. Blown calls drew jeers. The dunks sparked wild cheers. And Flagg proved he's hard to outmatchy.
Outmatchy, yeah.
Pretty good. And then last but not least, Ryan Balch. Ryan gives us, there once was a man named Guillermo who saw Cooper coming and said, uh-oh, reminds me of Zion. And he's got his eye on a dunk that will still hurt tomorrow.
It didn't hurt me. It might hurt Diaz Brand, but it definitely didn't hurt me. I loved it.
All right. So we're going to go ahead and head to the good. This is a game, of course, where the Blue Devils beat the second best team in the ACC by 29 points. Ken Pomeroy now rates Duke's chances of going undefeated in the ACC at 36%. He has run his numbers. He's run his computers. He says the Blue Devils have a 36% chance of winning out in the ACC. By comparison, he also ran a few other teams. The next closest to Duke is Gonzaga, has a 16% chance of going unblemished in the West Coast Conference. The ACC is down. It's better than the WCC. And again, Duke's chances more than double Gonzaga's chances. There is a very real possibility that we will not see the Blue Devils lose in 2025. Which is just unbelievable to think about. And Donald, I think that this all starts with defense. To me, that's the thing that I want to talk about the most. We had a listener, Matthew Lofton, who pointed out that this is the 7th time in 15 games that Duke has held an opponent to less points in the second half than they scored in the first. And that is a very unusual thing. Teams, usually there's a little more focus. There's extra fouling that happens down the stretch. Teams typically score more in the second half than the first half. Duke, though, plays better defense in the second half than the first half. So, again, in about half of our games this year, we've held the opponent to less points in the second half than the first half. And to understand how rare that is, last year, Duke played 36 games. In only 5 of them did we hold an opponent to less points in the second half than in the first half. So I was just terribly impressed first of all, with that stat that Matthew Lofton gave to us, but with the quality of Duke's defense. And it was mostly that we utterly frustrated Jalen Lowe, Ishmael Leggett, and Zach Austin, the three guys that we emphasized on the preview, Donald, that we talked about, these guys who were doing such a great job of hitting all their shots from the perimeter, especially from 2-point range. Those three guys, the starting backcourt for Pitt, combined to shoot 6 for 32, 18%, 18.7%, 6 for 32. That is how you take a team that's averaging 84 points per game and hold them to 37 points below their average. You utterly frustrate their entire offensive attack. Is really, really impressive.
I was just flabbergasted at this fact. It was 56-47 Duke with 7:59 left in the game. And they had 47 points. They did not score a single point the rest of the game.
Yeah, John Shire called timeout. I want to know what he said to the guys in the timeout, because it's entirely possible he said, "Hey guys, they are done. No more."
It was probably the Remember the Titans speech. Like, I don't want them to gain another yard. You blitz all night. If they get one more point, I'm gonna take every last one of you out. Like that the way that defense came about. And again, this is why people were emailing like, "Yo, you guys, we won by 30, like almost 30. Like, you guys are hyping these guys up." Did you expect an 8-point scoreless drought for Pitt to end the game?
8 minute. 8 minute. Yeah.
Yeah. 8 minute. Like, did you expect that? No, because that's historic. These are historic things that we're talking about here. And the fact that this defense is able to just turn it on in the second half, especially, and to completely render a team ineffective, like, that is incredible to do. They only had one Pitt player that was in double figures all night. And like you mentioned, all the guys that you kind of keyed in on in the preview, none of them really did anything. And it wasn't because they aren't good. It's because we are that much better at defense. And the fact that we're able to see the head of a snake, or the heads of a snake, even the tail of a snake, even the body of a snake, and cut it off and say, "I hope you guys do well with what you got left." Like, they were not able to have an answer for it. Even when we were kind of sloppy at some points on offense, our defense was always there. We have said time and time again that defense travels. Defense can fit into any carry-on, and it can fit in any gym bag that you can walk into Cameron Indoor Stadium. And by God, every single day we get to wake up and watch this team play historic defense. And it just shows in the analytics, right? It shows in the numbers, it shows in the stats, it shows the analytics, and it shows in how these guys, when you look at the guys, how they feed off of it. And again, the biggest play of the season started on a defensive steal, right?
Exactly.
Like, the defense is fueling the offense, and when they get a defensive stop, you can see how much it animates the team, and we should be animated too, because we know it's going to lead eventually to us taking a lead that teams will never be able to get back, because our defense just won't allow for it.
So I got a couple sort of categories that I identified that I wanted to talk about before we get to the individual players. The first one is sharing the ball. Donald, you pointed out in the preview that Pitt doesn't allow a lot of assists. In the first half of this ballgame, Duke had 10 assists on 12 made baskets. Mm-hmm. And throughout the game, our ability to move the ball around, to find the right opportunity, just showed itself again and again and again against a Pitt team that, again, as we talked about, does a pretty decent job of not allowing you ordinarily to find the shot that you want. Speaking of getting the shots we want, in the second half, Duke hit 60% from the field, including 4 of 5 3-pointers. We went 11 of 20 on threes in this entire game. It was a contest where just a whole bunch of guys seemed to shoot fairly well, and it was because I rarely saw Duke take a shot that I was like, that wasn't a good shot. Virtually everything was a possession that's a quality possession, which that's what you strive for. But it's not what Duke always achieves. And, we had a little cold stretch at one point in the first half, and I'm going to get to that a little bit later when I'm talking about something that I've planned for the back half of this podcast. But for the most part, this was a performance where Duke understood where to get the shots that were the highest quality shots.
They were doing a lot of cross-court passes, which I thought was great. They did a lot of pinpoint passes. How many times did you see Cooper Flagg or Sion James or Tyrese Proctor just float a ball that went just over the wingspan of a Pitt player, and just so happened to land into an in rhythm Duke player who would take a three and make it. It felt like, half of those 11 threes that were made were just passes that went cross court and some guy just catches it and all he has to do is shoot it. Or it was like a pass over a defense where like it's for a defender, it's so frustrating to see a ball just go outside of your reach and you turn around, you see it land in the arms of somebody and they just are in rhythm and they shoot right over you. And all you can do is watch the ball go Drano in the net. That happens so many times on a lot of plays. And I just enjoyed the fact that we were able to do that. On the other hand, again, to go back to the defense for a second, our defensive switching was incredible. And even Jeff Capel after the game said that it really frustrated Pitt, the fact that, you saw man guarding guards. And, we've seen that obviously this year, but
and not getting beat.
Guarding guards. And so the fact is like Pitt was trying to do what we were doing by doing the pinpoint passing, except they were throwing it to the Cameron Crazies. And they were throwing it to their own bench, that sort of thing. So it is just a difference in detail that cost Pitt probably 25, 30 points because we were able to do that effectively and they just weren't able to with the main fact that everyone on our team, save for like one or two guys, can switch on anything and can switch around where the mismatches that you think you have are not available because the mismatches are actually on the defensive side and not the offensive side.
So as I get to another category, I want to talk about rebounding just really, really quickly. On the season, Duke is not like one of the best rebounding teams in the country. They're not bad. I mean, there's nothing this team does badly, but they're like in the 50s or so in terms of overall rebounding. But it just feels to me like whenever there's a game where I'm like, ooh, this is a game where we maybe need to focus on this. This is a game where we're facing an opponent who's really good at it. Duke just tends to pick up the rebounding and succeed at it. In this game, 41-26, we out rebounded them by 15. That's just a big advantage. 41-26 is a big old number. And I said in the preview that Pitt is not a great rebounding team. You may recall, Donald, I said this is one of the places where I think Duke could really take advantage of them. And again, it's clear the team was listening to our preview and they decided to focus on rebounding and they crushed Pitt by 15 on the boards.
And I mentioned that, we have like the barometer of turnovers, right? Is plus or minus 12, right? I said, if we can, and we've had some games recently where we were allowing 15, 20, 21 offensive rebounds. I said, hey, a good game would be if we could get back to keep the team under 10. Well, Pitt had 9 offensive rebounds. And again, they had only had 17 defensive rebounds. So it really rendered them useless. Just like we said in the preview, they weren't getting a lot of second chance points and third chance points because they weren't getting the ball. It was one miss and out. And when you continually do that, you're going to build a lead. And that's kind of how we built the lead at the end, is because we were getting one possession from them, one shot from them, and then we were getting the ball and doing something on the other end. And that's what led to that 18-0 lead to close the game.
All right, so I want to get to some of the players now if we can. First of all, just something in general about the starters. All 5 of our starters reached double figures. All 5 of our starters had 4 or more rebounds. 3 of our 5 starters had 4 or more assists. It was a great performance from the starters. There are a couple of the bench guys I'm going to mention in a moment, and we're also going to talk a little bit about the bench when we get to because there's some concerns there for sure. But the performance of it's become abundantly clear that John Shire has 5 guys, maybe 6 if you count Malik Brown and man splitting time. And they, kind of splitting time. Man's getting more minutes, but it's abundantly clear that John Shire has really settled on a starting 5 that he likes and that he is super trustworthy when it comes to playing on both ends of the floor. All right, so the first starter I want to mention, of course, is Cooper Flagg. Super efficient again, scores 19 points on 11 shots, 7 of 11 from the floor, had 10 rebounds and 5 assists. Donald, we have a 10-5-5 game.
Yes, finally.
Only 2 of them Cooper's had both of them on the season. He had one in the main game, the very first game of the year, and then he's come close. Sion James has come close. Tyrese Proctor's come close, but we had another 10-5-5 game thanks to Coop getting a 5th assist in this contest. I'm going to pause after each one, let you do something on him, and then I'll go to the next starter.
Besides the dunk, he was effective in so many different ways, as you just mentioned, right? He was getting rebounds. There was one point where him and Concanipple went for a rebound, and Con Knippel was in perfect defensive position to go get the rebound, and Cooper was in I'm gonna just get this ball mode, and so he went and got the rebound over
Yeah,
Con Knippel, and it wasn't
I saw that.
like a a selfish thing or anything like that. But they mentioned on the broadcast like, hey, there's guys who are in defensive rebounding mode, and then there's guys in I'm going to get the ball mode. Cooper right now is in I'm getting the ball mode, and no matter what, when the ball went in the air, you kind of felt like no matter who was around it, Cooper Flagg was coming down with it, and that's what happened in this game.
Speaking of Con Knippel, he also had a very efficient game. 17 points on 12 shots, 4 of 7 from 3. His 3-point percentage is now up to 36% on the year. I said to you, Donald, that I think by the time that season's done, he's going to be up closer to 40%. He has 13 threes in his past 4 games. He's shooting 43% from 3-point range over that stretch. All 4 games against ACC teams. And he's hitting 43% from 3. And Donald, speaking of his shooting, with 18 minutes left in the second half, Con Knippel stepped to the free throw line and missed. Did you see his reaction? He was the ball, like, first of all, the ball rattled out. It was one of those, misses where it was dead on target. It was just maybe a touch too long, and it rattled around and came out. But you saw Con like shrug his shoulders, like almost be shot. Like, what? I missed a free throw. What's going on here? On the season. First of all, that was his first missed free throw since November 12th against Kentucky. And on the season, Con Knippel is now 27 of 29 on free throws. He's better than 93%. Not bad.
Yeah, it's like those are JJ numbers, point blank simple. And I joke because I remember when JJ had the thing where he missed like two free throws in a month, and he told the camera crazes, "Yo, it's too quiet in here. I need some like ambient noise when I shoot free throws so that I can concentrate." And we kind of did like light claps instead of the hands in the air during free throws. But yeah, it's that sort of thing. But the great thing about it is, he shrugged it off. He made the next one, and we're off and running again. But now he gets to do another streak. Getting to the line is something that he hasn't gone that much. You just mentioned 27 for 29. That's not a lot of free throws, but it's because people are so scared of putting him on the line because they know what's going to happen. It's going to be 2 points. So I'm really with that.
As I continue to run down the starters, I thought Tyrese Proctor had an outstanding game. His defense, him and Sion James, this is where good guards who are usually in control of the game go to die. They go to Tyrese Proctor and Sion James to eliminate playing well. It is becoming a habit again and again. And you and I in the next several hours, day or so, whatever it may be, depending on when folks listen to this podcast, we're going to be previewing the Notre Dame game. Notre Dame may have the best guard in the ACC. And I'm going to tell you right now, Marcus Burton is not looking forward to playing against Tyrese Proctor and Sion James. It is just a load for any guard to try and take on these two guys who are incredibly long, move their feet super well, don't foul very much, know how to recover, block shot. They are just the definition of elite defenders. And the other things I want to note about Tyrese were he was 3 or 4 on 3-pointers. I mentioned he's gotten really hot lately, and he continues to be super hot. And his plus minus, you never want to focus too much on plus minus in one game. It's too weird and too variable a stat. But Tyrese plays 33 minutes and his plus minus was plus 42. That's ridiculous. That's like from another planet. I don't even, there's nothing to say about that other than the fact that I'm still talking about it because I can't formulate anything to think about other than the fact that plus 42 in 33 minutes, forget about it. That shows you how valuable this guy is, even when he's not hitting 3 out of 4 3-pointers.
13 points, 4 rebounds, 4 assists. He's 1 rebound and 1 assist shy of a 10.55. And the next guy I know you'll probably talk about, you mentioned him, Sion James, 1 assist shy of a 10.55. So this is, again, not just Cooper Flagg being well-rounded. Everybody in this game was well-rounded, especially our starters.
Yeah, I was going to mention Sion next. Like you say, 1 assist from a 10.55. Outrageous defense that I already talked about. His and Tyrese's ability to stay in front of Ishmael Leggett and Jalen Lowe changed the whole game around. It just meant that Pitt was never, ever, ever comfortable and really frustrated. It's also worth noting about Sion that he led the team in minutes played in this contest, almost 36 minutes. We've talked about the fact before that when he was at Tulane last year, Sion, I want to say he averaged like 37 and a half minutes per game. I mean,
Yeah, he rarely
basically,
came out.
he was basically in the game constantly. And Sion's been scoring some for Duke. It doesn't even matter how much he scores. It doesn't even matter. He's been getting a ton of assists lately. It doesn't even matter how many assists he gets because he's doing all the intangible, all the little things that make a team better. And I'm not going to get into. We're going to talk a little bit about Caleb Foster a little later on. At least I've got a couple things I want to say. I feel sorry for Caleb Foster because I don't know how you, if you are Duke, if you are John Shire, and you think a game is important and you're worried about it, I don't know how you take Sion James out for more than a couple minutes at the most to give him a little bit of a blow, because his defense and intangibles are game changing in a very, very big way.
On top of the defense that he exhibited on the perimeter, he led the team in blocks. He had two of them. So it's not something that he's known to do often. But the fact that he was even blocking shots just again shows how this team is willing to do anything to win and win big. And that's how everyone accepting their role, but also sometimes James going, "Hey, you're going to go up for a shot? Not on my watch. This is going out of bounds, or this is going in the arms of one of my players. We're going the other way." That again, they all feed off of that, and they feed off the success of each other on defense.
Speaking of block shots, Kamen Malawach was registered with one block shot. As usual, I believe the official scorer has lost his mind and that Kamen was responsible for several additional shots missing. I wish there was some way to like really articulate like changed shot or dude going up for a shot and realizes that he is about to have his life taken, so he decides not to shoot. There needs to be some kind of statistic to measure Kamen Malawach's rim protection, which is far, far bigger than one blocked shot. Kamen, by the way, as well, was 4 of 4 on 2-point baskets. I think almost all of them were dunks. I talked a couple episodes ago about the fact that on the season he was shooting an absurd percentage. His absurd shooting percentage on 2-point shots continues to go higher. He is currently at 83.6% on his 2-point field goals. I'm going to repeat it, Donald. We've done a lot of numbers. You and I do a lot of numbers. This is a numbers podcast. 83.6%. I don't think I've seen a number like that from a player who plays a reasonable number of minutes. It's outrageous. And in ACC play this year, 5 games, Kamen Malawach has missed one shot from 2-point range. He's 15 of 16 on ACC play. He's as good on 2-point shots as Con Knipple is on free throws.
Jason, I have a stat for you, or at least a did you know fact. Did you know that Kamen Malawach is a tailor? Because of all the alterations that he does, he's so good.
Oh, nice one!
Yeah,
very nicely done.
It's funny if they made a stat for altered shots, he'd lead the nation. I'll just leave it at that.
I want to mention just a couple things about our supporting cast. Mason Gillis made the most of his minutes. When Cooper Flagg in the first half picked up a couple fouls, Mason Gillis gave the team a real lift when everyone was struggling to score. This is when Duke was having its real struggles getting points on the board. He had that one play where he was incredibly patient while the shot clock was almost completely burned. He went in the lane. I think a lot of guys would have put up a panic shot. Not Mason Gillis. Mason Gillis has been around college basketball since like I was in diapers or something like that. No panic at all. And makes a big shot to help Duke keep a lead, and then drained a 3 a couple moments later. And it's worth noting the three-pointer he drained came on a possession sort of just moments after Con Knipple and Isaiah Evans had both missed like wide open looks early in the game. Look, the reality is, Donald, even if you're wide open, no one's going to hit 70-80% of their three-pointers. So I forgive Con and Isaiah for missing those wide open shots. But for Mason Gillis, a guy who we've talked about has struggled a bit on threes, to come back after watching those two plays and going, "Oh no, I got this, guys." That was a big deal. And I wanted to very quickly shout out Isaiah Evans for something that doesn't usually happen with him. There was a really nice defensive possession in the first half. Damian Dunn came in. He was being guarded by Isaiah. And I guarantee you, he's a physical guy. He's a big guard. He saw, Isaiah, who's a little bit thin, a lot bit thin. And Damian Dunn thought, oh, I'll be able to shake this guy, be physical with him and get around him and get an easy shot. And Isaiah Evans played really, really good defense. And I just wanted to shout him out for that because it was not a game where Isaiah had anything going on offense. But Isaiah played great defense on Damian Dunn, and that was the possession that ended up Dunn couldn't get anything going against Isaiah. He ended up passing out to a guy in the perimeter who airballed a three-pointer for a shot clock violation. That shot clock violation, that credit goes to Isaiah Evans. And if you feel like Isaiah is a guy who early in the season may have been held back by his defense, not anymore. One of the reasons he's getting these minutes, getting significant minutes in big games, is because he can play D, maybe not as well as Tyrese Proctor and Sion James, but he can play it pretty damn well.
I was going to say, playing better than those two is a tall order to ask. Like you don't ask somebody to be better than the CEO at everything, right? You just ask them to be the best they can be when they step up. But I think at the end of the day, when it comes to, I think Mason Gillis once again had a really good game that's not really reflected in the 5 points and 2 assists that he had. I think he had a lot more, like you said, a lot more influence in keeping the game within our reach and kind of keeping it where we were in control when Cooper Flagg had to go to the bench. And to bridge that gap is something that we needed at the time. And Mason Gillis has proven over the last couple of weeks, especially, that he can be a guy that can bridge that gap, whatever that gap may be, whether it's, waiting for our offense to kick in, whether it's making sure our defense stays on point when some guys go out for foul trouble. He's been able to provide that. And so I'm really glad to see that it's just like last year, right? When he was at Purdue, people were like, wait, we're really hype over a guy that averaged 6 points a game. Yeah, but he did so many little things to help Purdue on that run to the national championship game that he was an indispensable figure on that roster. He has become one where, okay, I see it now. I see the vision. I see I understand it now. So I'm really glad to see that he's come into his own of being that guy who can bridge whatever gap that needs to be bridged and making it where this team is successful when he's on the floor so that whenever he does step off the floor, he's leaving the court in good hands for our guys to take over.
Last thing I got in the good here, Donald. And I'm not sure. Yeah, this goes. Yes, this does go in the good, I think. We started to hear some rumors about 2 hours or so before the game that there were guys in the Duke team who were very sick. In fact, there was something going around. There were people who were saying that Cooper Flagg might not play in this game because he was suffering from some kind of illness, with flu, norovirus, whatever it may be. And I'll be honest, when they walked out on the floor, I thought Cooper looked really pale. I mean, he's kind of a pale guy anyway, but I was like, oh, he doesn't look very well. I know for a fact that this team, and I've mentioned this on this podcast, either last episode or the previous one. It was the previous one. It was the recap of the SMU game. There are a number of guys in this Duke team who've got the sniffles. They got a stomach bug. They're not fully healthy. And they just put a 37-point beat down on the second best team in the ACC. And they all played through it. This is a gritty, determined, will not lose kind of team. And if you think a stomach bug is going to keep him down, you're wrong.
This has been going on for a while, right? Like we mentioned a few weeks ago, it started with Cameron Sheffield and Spencer Hubbard getting hurt and getting sick and missing a couple of games. And then it was John Shire, and a lot of people have kind of said on the internet that more people were sick in Dallas than were not. And that sickness has carried through to the point where, almost everybody on the team is now sick in some way. And I think yes, in a way, we were playing all our guys to the very end, and some people were kind of like, why aren't we taking out Cooper and Khan and those guys while we're up 27 points with 2 minutes left? We need some. One of my friends, Mark, texted me and said, "Yo, we need the stats game. We need Spencer Hubbard to get his numbers up for the stats game." But I think at the end of the day, John Shire said he mentioned that Pitt is dangerous, and he wanted to make sure that they couldn't be put in a position where they could, come back and their offensive ability to really turn it on. He said he didn't want any part of that, so he wanted our guys to be able to hold that off as long as possible. But also, it's kind of like fighting, when the old adage, like when we were much younger, when you were sick, it was like, yo, go outside and run around, sweat the sickness out of you.
There you go, yeah,
that sort of thing. So I'm wondering if there's a little bit of that, a little bit of it, column A, column B. But I think the one thing is this: these guys refuse to lose, and these guys have tasted loss and they don't like it, so they're not going to do it again. But also, they are not using anything as an excuse. And I think that's the key here is that, and it's not to say that if you're sick, you should play through it because, not playing through it is an excuse, but they don't want anyone to be like, oh, these guys are down. These guys are sloppy. These guys aren't shooting well. And, oh, maybe it's because they're sick. Maybe it's because they're just not fully 100%. Yeah, sure, you can use that, but these guys have chosen not to. And it's clear in their play that they want to play better in spite of the fact that they may be sick. So kudos to them for doing it. Not everyone does that. And not everyone, and now that we have a couple of days off, it's not a super long, but at least a couple of days. Hopefully they're getting the rest in all the fluids and all that so that they're fully healthy on Saturday. That's what we want long term. But a gritty performance by a bunch who, as sick as they may be, were able to do that. Like, imagine what we can see when they're fully healthy.
Exactly. Couldn't have said it better myself. All right, we're going to take a quick break. On the other side, I have the formula. I have figured out why Duke is so great. And I'm going to tell you all about it in just a moment. All right, it's a new year. Are you ready to optimize your nutrition this year? Factor has chef-made gourmet meals that make eating, well, easy. They're dietitian approved and ready to heat and eat in just 2 minutes so you can fuel right and feel great no matter what life throws at you.
Jason, everyone has busy lives and some are more on the go than others. And Factor takes the guesswork out of meals. With 40 options on the menu each week, it's easy to pick meals tailored to your goals. You can choose from preferences like Calorie Smart, Protein Plus, or Keto. And Jason, here's the best part. The meals are delicious. I love the Factor meals. It's delicious food, it's nutritious, easy prep, and it caters to your schedule. It's a no-brainer.
Okay, everybody, eat smart with Factor. Get started at factormeals.com/DukeBB50off. Use that code DukeBB50off to get 50% off your first box plus free shipping. That's code DukeBB50off at factormeals.com and get 50% off plus free shipping on your first box.
College hoops is in full force, but you know what time it is in the NFL? Playoffs? Talk about playoffs? Playoffs? You bet we are. Get in on the action at DraftKings Sportsbook, an official sports betting partner of the NFL.
Yeah, hey, Donald, the new DraftKings customers bet $5 and they get $200 in bonus bets instantly. $200 bonus bet. That's pretty good, man. Are you ready to place your first wager? Try something simple like, I don't know, a player to score a touchdown, or pick the team you think is going to go all the way. Go to the DraftKings Sportsbook app and make your picks as the NFL hits the postseason.
Download the DraftKings Sportsbook app and use code DukeBB. That's code DukeBB for new customers to get $200 in bonus bets instantly when you bet just $5. Only on DraftKings Sportsbook. The crown is yours.
Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. In New York, call 877-8-HOPE-NY or text HOPE-NY 467-369. In Connecticut, help is available for problem gambling. Call 888-789-7777 or visit ccpg.org. Please play responsibly. On behalf of Boot Hill Casino and Resort in Kansas, 21 and over, age and eligibility varies by jurisdiction. Void in Ontario. Bonus bets expire 168 hours after issuance. For additional terms and responsible gaming resources, see dkng.co/audio.
All right, we're back from the break, Donald. We're going to do a couple things in the bad. And I'm going to start. We sort of mentioned this at the top, but I just want to get into it a little bit more. One of the things in the bad is our preview. We got the complaints, as we said, from all the folks who said, "Why are you pumping up these opponents?" I just want to point out to everybody it was an 11-point game with 8 minutes left. And this was not a sure thing. I think that the final score doesn't really show you how close and competitive a contest it was. I mean, Duke going on an 18-0 run to close the game will do that. It'll skew things a little bit. But this Pitt team missed plenty of shots that they usually hit. Duke played great defense, no question about it. But if we're being honest, Pitt will tell you that was not their best effort. I'm sure they are eager to get another shot at Duke later in the season. It would be in the ACC tournament because they feel like we want to show Duke what we can really do. But going back to the notion of, our preview of the game, our preview of these opponents, I'm going to tell you right now, when we preview Notre Dame on our next podcast, I'm going to candidly say that they present some special challenges for Duke. And frankly, I am eager at this point, for one of these ACC teams to step up and give us a game. Duke needs to be tested. Duke does not need to spend the next 2 months, January and February and parts of March, whooping everybody's butt by 25 points. We might. I'm not going to say it's impossible that happens. But I think this team, probably a young team, still young team, they probably need to face some struggles so they can know what to work on. Fail a bit so you can get better at the things that need to be improved. Iron sharpens iron. And so far, there's been very little iron. It's been aluminum so far from the ACC. If even aluminum, it's been paper more than that. And I get that it feels like, Donald, that you and I are saying things that aren't true about these opponents. That's just not the case. This Pittsburgh team was one of the top 25 teams in the land coming into this game. They aren't anymore, but they were, and they deserve to be. And we got to have someone test Duke. I'm ready to be stressed in a game again. I want it to happen. Did I just curse us? I think I just cursed us.
I'm not. I'm just saying right now. I love this run that we're on right now. And I will say this, like I mentioned at the top, we are looking at historic numbers and historic performances from this team. When you look at the KenPom, you talked all that stuff on the last episode about how high our KenPom is and how historic that is. We just got higher last night. We're number one team in the country now on KenPom. So we're even uncharted higher than any Duke team has ever been in any midseason point, right? Like, so we're almost close. It's since 2001.
Yeah, 2001 and 1999. Yeah,
right. Those teams those teams aren't real when you look at KenPom numbers. Like they're Alice in Wonderland. We're talking about reality here, but no, this team is very good. This team is playing historically great on defense. This team is playing with reckless abandon to the point where they're like, hey, we don't care how bad we beat teams. And I obviously went to school. In my first year was the 2001 year, where they were beating people by 40. They beat Virginia that year, who's number 10 in the country, by 40. Guess who enjoyed every second of that? Me. Because it's very easy to say, oh, yes, we want to be stressed. We want to be tested. Yeah, sure. Test us. And I want us to pass those tests with flying colors every single time. That's what we're doing. So I'm totally fine with hyping up an opponent and saying this team is going to be good. Or at least these. I don't think we're saying that these teams are necessarily great. We are presenting where the challenges could be present, right? Whether it be individual players or how they play as a team. We're not saying these teams are going to give us a close game, although I think you said that last game, but hey, be wrong on that. That's cool.
I said I thought that it would be less than a 12-point game, and it was.
And it was until we went on an 18-0 lead.
Yeah.
Until we went on an 18-0 run. So again, we were right there, and John Shire said it, and he's like, that's why I left my starters in, because I want, these guys were creeping closer, and I didn't want to give them an opportunity to come back and snatch this one from us. So this team is clearly saying we don't want to lose anymore, and they're playing like it, which is great. Now, we also don't want to pivot and go, well, this team is awful. They do nothing on offense. They do nothing on defense, because that's not the case. But we also don't want to set it up where you guys have to email us afterwards and go, yo, I thought that was a terrible team. Why are we only winning by 8? Or why did we lose this game? Because we get those emails all the time. when our team is playing very shaky. And there will be a point where this team is going to have some adversity. We don't know what that adversity is going to how it's going to present itself, but it will be there. And that challenge will be something that they have to overcome. We will be there to talk about those challenges as we kind of will in this bad for a couple guys. We're going to talk about those. And when we're ready to do that and we cross that bridge, we'll get to it. But I stress this. Enjoy this. Enjoy all of this because this is a lot of fun. I loved the fact that I was able to watch this game and my blood pressure was at like 58. I don't. My doctor said my blood pressure can't get too high, so I don't need any of these games. Maybe some of you out there like that adrenaline rush. I save my adrenaline for other things. The Lions are in the playoffs, so I say that to say everyone enjoy this. If we end up blasting a team by more than we thought, that's a good thing. That's not cause for concern. And we appreciate the emails because they're all in jest and we were laughing at a lot of them as well. But it's one of those things where we want to present the information to you, the people that may not be watching these teams, about who to watch out for. And if those teams or those players decide that they don't want to show up when they play against us, that is a personal decision for them. But you get to enjoy it as a Duke fan.
All right, as we get to more of the bad, and as we get to bad that does not relate to you and me, but relates to this actual game, let's talk about the turnovers. 14 turnovers from Duke. That's bad.
Yeah.
That's a lot.
Yeah. We said plus minus 12, right? That was plus 12. Yeah.
12 is the threshold, and 14 is more than 12. And it's even worse than you think because Duke only had one turnover in the first 15 minutes of the game. And then they just came in flurries. We'd be fine for a couple of minutes, and then we'd have like 3 or 4 turnovers over the course of a half dozen to 8 possessions. Some of them were really ugly. Almost all of them were live ball turnovers. Like Pitt registered 11 steals in this game, and Pitt is not a team that usually gets a ton of steals. And as a result, Pitt got to race the other direction. Now, we did a pretty decent job of not allowing them to get too many easy points off turnover. But, I mean, they only got 10 points off turnover, which to me is great, considering 14 turnovers, 11 steals, almost all the turnovers being live ball turnovers. But it was a problem. And Duke has a couple guys who just sort of seem prone to this. Cooper Flagg being the most obvious one of them. If we're looking for a place to clean something up in a 29 plus point victory, the turnovers are certainly something that can be cleaned.
Yeah, and again, I think a lot of them were Cooper Flagg doing that spin move that was prone to turnovers in the early part of the season. We talked ad nauseum about those final plays against Kansas and Kentucky, where he kind of did a spin move and was caught. And Pitt, to their credit, was able to take advantage of some of those. And I think just overall, and again, this is where I think the being sick, they don't want to use it as an excuse, but these guys played sloppy for several stretches of the game on offense, at least. I don't necessarily think on defense they were sloppy, but definitely on offense there were some sloppy points. Like you said, from about 5 minutes left in the first half to about 10 minutes left in the game. They had a nice few stretches there where they just couldn't take care of the basketball, and against a better team that is going to come back and bite you. So we can't rely on the fact that, we'll take some possessions off on offense because our defense will be as good as it is. There's going to be a point where a team is going to score more than 50 points on us, or more than 60 points on us, or more than 70 points on us. That's going to happen. So we have to be ready.
Are you sure someone's going to get 70 on us?
Again, I would love to be wrong on that, but if we have to anticipate, we have to anticipate that is going to happen. And when we do, we cannot look back and say, man, we literally threw away several possessions because we just weren't taking care of the basketball. So we use that 12 as a way to say, usually when it's over 12, it's very, difficult for us to win a game. Of course, we won this one going away, but we don't want that extra effort to have to win the ball game. We had a great start. We had a decent start. Again, we're starting to trend to having some decent starts shooting at least, but it was sloppiness that got Pitt back into it and had it where there was a point where Pitt felt like they could make a run and get back into this thing.
All right, as we continue with the bad, I need to talk about the bench a little bit. We mentioned Mason Gillis, great in the first half, played 7 minutes when Cooper was in foul trouble, played 0 minutes in the second half. I haven't looked at John Shire's entire press conference to see if he was asked about it. I wouldn't be shocked if we heard maybe that Mason was suffering from a little bit of a bug or something, but 0 minutes for him in the second half is surprising. In the second half, Caleb Foster and Isaiah Evans only played 3 minutes each. Malik Brown only played five. And other than Malik Brown grabbing one single solitary rebound, our bench guys didn't score, didn't get an assist, didn't get a steal. They just had that one Malik Brown rebound. They really did very, very little in the second half. In fact, the only other stat that they accumulated, Isaiah Evans had a turnover. And getting to Caleb Foster really quickly, we talked about the past couple games. It felt like he was coming out of a bit of his funk, a little more aggressive. He was hitting some shots, and we were super excited about that. In this game, Caleb doesn't even attempt a shot, 0 field goal attempts. And I talked about the incredible plus minus that Tyrese Proctor put up. Somehow, I can't even figure out how this could be in a game that the Duke wins overwhelmingly. Caleb Foster registered a plus minus of -9 in his 8 minutes of playing time. That is just incredibly. Duke won this game virtually every stretch of the game, except for the moments Caleb Foster was on the floor. It's surprising, and it is probably the biggest concern that I have about this team is getting Caleb Foster to the point where we can count on him to help us a bit when he comes in the game.
After the game, Adam Rowe from 247, good guy. He was filming some stuff around Cameron, and he filmed that Caleb Foster, like an hour or so after the game was over, was on Cameron's floor getting up more shots. So he's clearly frustrated, and you can tell, not necessarily by his demeanor. There's a couple of times where you see guys really make an effort to try and pick him up if he does something in a negative way. But he's clearly that he's frustrated with how this season is going for him and how he's performing when he's on the court. And it may not be, and one good week, which he did have last week, is not going to be enough to really overcome that. They always say it takes 21 days to make a habit. We're on day 8 of 2025. So there's going to be some time for him to really work his way out of this thing and get to a point where he's getting back to playing the carefree ball that we saw from him last year, where he was just out there, making shots and seemingly doing the right play on just about every possession. So it's going to take some time for him to do that. It's going to take some time for him to really work into this new role that he has of being off the bench and maybe coming in, to spell a Tyrese Proctor or a Sion James. So that I ask people to kind of bear with him for that. It's clearly frustrating for us. Obviously, it's frustrating for the coaches. But
yeah,
the fact that he's shooting jump shots, we saw that last year with Jared McCain, right? Jared McCain would have days where he's like, "Oh, I missed 5 threes," and he'd go out and shoot like 500 jumpers because he was so angry at himself. There's nobody who's bigger or more angry or more upset or more frustrated at these guys than these guys. And Caleb Foster is clearly showing that frustration. But hopefully he's taking the steps necessary to work through it. His team obviously is behind him, and we need to as well. But yeah, it's from a fan perspective, it is always frustrating to see a guy do so well one week and then the next week he kind of disappears. And in this case, not take a shot. But hopefully that means on Saturday against Notre Dame, we see Caleb come off the bench and have a inspired performance. But that's what we need to work to, this consistency that is not present in his game right now. And that I think is the most frustrating for him and for us.
All right, the last thing I have in the bad, and I don't know if you've got anything else you wanted to mention, Donald, but I'm going to go ahead and put this in the bad. Tyrese Proctor was the victim of a sack attack. Damian Dunn gave him a little nut punch. And I mean, the only thing that really changed about the game was Duke ended on an 18-0 run as opposed to a 16-0 run. It didn't have a big meaningful impact on the game, but I don't like seeing that kind of thing. Just period, end of story. It's a punk move to make. I'm not quite sure what he was hoping to accomplish with it. He almost missed. I'm not 100% sure that he really struck home, so to speak. Tyrese, there may have been a little bit of acting going on there. It looked to me like he got him a little bit closer to the stomach, but I don't know how.
Hey, when you know what it is, when you get close,
Yeah.
Wilson's, you don't have to be 100% on target to get your target, and so to speak. But yeah, you can't have it. I'm glad that the refs did something about it. I was actually surprised that they gave him a flagrant two. I think if it was earlier in the game, they may not have done that. Or at least I have reason to believe that they wouldn't have done that. I think they're like, it's 10 seconds left. Just, send them to the locker room and let's not, make this situation any worse. And let it fester a little bit. But also, I think you saw at the end there, when they were talking and trying to figure out what they were going to do, you saw John Shire and Jeff Capel kind of talking to each other about it. And again, these guys are very good friends. They've coached together on Duke's bench, and so you could kind of see Jeff Capel kind of going like, "Hey, that's not something we do here." And when the word came that it was going to be a flagrant two, you saw Jeff Capel kind of go, "Yeah, that sounds right. That sounds like what I would want if it were my guy." So hopefully it's a one-time thing for Damian Dunn, because like we said, he's a really good player, but definitely can't have that in the game.
Yeah, yeah. All right, I want to get to just a general thing. I mentioned that I figured out the formula for Duke's success, and this is going to seem obvious, but I did want to talk about this just very briefly. I want everyone to understand that this Duke team is going to go through offensive droughts. We saw one in this game. We had like a 5-minute stretch in this game where we just couldn't score at all. But at some point, I still believe that Duke's going to score at a fairly regular rate in every one of their games. They're just too good. This is a top 10 offense. They're too good on offense to go a full 40 minutes and struggle to score the whole time. The formula for Duke is that our defense never goes away. We may get in a drought on offense, but we're never in a drought on defense. And you will always, always, always have difficulty scoring against Duke. So as a result, games could seem close. Like we had the Louisville game that was, this game was only 11-point game, 10-point game at halftime. Seemed reasonably close, especially early in the game. Sometimes it seems close if Duke has one of these droughts in the first half, which is when we tend to have them. But you're going to struggle to score the entire game against Duke. Every single second is going to be difficult for your offense. And at some point, Duke's offense is going to be good enough that we're going to run away from you. And that's what's happened. We've seen it now, like game after game after game. It sort of goes along, even or Duke's a little bit better. And then the opposing team will hit a stretch with like, oh, shoot, we've only scored 1 point in the past 12 minutes, or something crazy. Or in the case here, 0 points in 8 minutes at the very end of the game. And the opposing team looks up at the scoreboard and goes, oh, wow. Sion got a layup. Khan hit 2 threes. Cooper dunked on us twice. And now we're down by 25. Mm-hmm. Like that's the formula. So don't get upset. Don't get too upset when Duke's in one of these little droughts. They're going to be in droughts. Almost every game it happens. But the other team is going to be in a drought the entire time. They are thirsty for a good shot the entire game, and they never, ever get any water from the Duke defense.
I just love the fact that the defense has been showing up every night. I hope it continues. That's all we can do is kind of hope that the defense continues to be as good as it has been, because that'll keep you in any game. Even if you have an offensive scoring drought, the defense is going to hold you there, because one thing about it is if we're scoring, 50, it feels like right now, if we score 50 points, we're going to win a ball game. Like if we're at 50 with like under 4 timeout, like, and that's low for us, but like if we're at 50, it feels like we can win a game because the other team's going to be at 40. And that's where, again, it just gives you that extra confidence that, I can not that you want to, but you're like, hey, I can hold out a little bit until this offense comes back, because when it does, this team's still going to be at 30 points or at 20 points or at 27 points, whatever that is, and we can then hit the ground running, and these guys won't be able to catch up. It feels like they're cutting off the one opportunity that any team has to try and upset us by just bringing good defense. So if that defense can continue to work, continue to bring the effort on the defensive end every single night, this team is going to be, I already said online, this team is special. This team is special because our defense is special. And if our defense can continue to be the way it is, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to be watching this team for a very long time.
Last quick note I have. As you mentioned earlier, Duke is now number 1 in Ken Pomeroy's adjusted efficiency margin ratings, his net ratings, with a number of plus 36.73, which is just stupidly crazy high. It surpasses the midseason number that was achieved by the 2019 Duke team, the Zion Williamson, RJ Barrett team. This is now the highest efficiency margin net rating that a Duke team has had since 2001 and 1999. It is right around, I haven't found the exact number, but it is right around one of the mid-season numbers that 2015 Kentucky had. That 2015 Kentucky team, you'll remember, almost went undefeated. Basically, those four teams, plus Auburn, because Auburn's just a fraction behind us at this point. That's the pantheon of the past 25, I guess 27 years of college basketball. 1999 Duke, 2001 Duke, 2015 Kentucky, and the current Duke and Auburn teams have the five best efficiency margin numbers that we've ever seen since Ken Pomeroy began collecting statistics back in like 96 or 97, somewhere in there. So just so we're clear, arguably at this moment, this Duke team is one of the top five teams in the past quarter century. Wow.
Let's keep it going. Let's keep it going.
I mean, that's incredible. But there's something super important that should be noted about that. 2015 Kentucky, 1999 Duke, they didn't win a title. One of Duke or Auburn this year, maybe both of them, won't win a title. There is more work to be done. And the last thing I want to say about it is, this was game number 15. We are now exactly halfway through the regular season. Actually, halftime of the next game. There's 31 regular season games. Halftime of the Notre Dame game, we'll be halfway through the regular season. This is not small sample size stuff anymore. This is this Duke team showing that they have the potential to be one of the all-time greats. And man, it is really fun to watch, isn't it?
I love it. And like I said, the historic numbers that we're seeing, look, enjoy them now. They may not be here tomorrow, right? We could go on a rut, and I'm not saying that we should or that I want to, but we have to be prepared for adversity to creep up in some form. This team feels like it's built to handle that adversity. We've talked about what some of the stuff that happened last year and how guys weren't able to fully overcome it. And you saw it in the tournament, in the ACC tournament, and then the Elite Eight game against NC State, where just some things came to a head, and all of a sudden we couldn't get out of our own way. And so we hope that's not going to be the case this year. And what these guys are doing is coming to work every single day. They're grinding through. The adversity that we're dealing with right now is illness. So hopefully we can overcome that and get everyone better for the Notre Dame game, and then we're off and running again. But when adversity presents itself, it's upon a team to figure out a way to overcome it. And so far, this team has passed that test time and time again. So I'm looking forward to the next half of this season, Jason, because it's going to be a fun one to watch, and it's going to be fun to see how this team can figure out a way to somehow get even better than they are today.
Exactly. With that, we're going to wrap it up here on 679 episode of the DBR podcast. He is Donald. I am Jason. We'll be back in your feed very, very soon for our preview of the Notre Dame game. Another big contest for the Blue Devils coming up this weekend. Until then, here's the Duke Band playing us out and taking us home.